the average wealth of white families is 10 times the average wealth of black families, and you know what I mean. That statistic goes to Hispanics as well. You know what I mean. The average wealth that a white family holds is way more than the wealth of a minority, and then you have all these minorities filling up these low income neighborhoods, these low income communities, and they can't get out. So they're stuck there, and you have police officers saying, hey, there's high crime there. Why is there crime? Because there's no opportunities. There's limited opportunities. There's limited work opportunities. There's limited educational opportunities. The schools there are up. You know what I mean? Everything is, they're going through a lot, and we're not looking at the actual root problem behind why minorities disproportionately commit more crime than whites.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, man, we really gotta just put money into these neighborhoods, because you go to, like, say Naperville, all these kids are riding nice cars, and then I go hang out with my family over on Marquette Park 63rd, and there's boarded up buildings, kids are out hanging on the street, like they have nothing to do. And if you have nothing to do, and you don't know where, your family has no money, you don't know where you're gonna get your next meal. What are you gonna do? You're gonna commit crimes. You're gonna rob. You're gonna steal. Just to get food on your plate. And that's a really big issue, because these kids, like look at Chicago. There was like 100 kids were just downtown, just like mobbing, rioting. But why were they doing that? Because they had nothing else to do. They can't go play sports. The school shut down. There's no open gyms. There's nothing for them to do. So they're gonna act out and do all that stuff. So
yeah, it's just about the lack of opportunities. And I know from firsthand experience, I've lived in a neighborhood in which was primarily white, and we had there was like a little park, and there was a book stand there. They had books at the park. So like and then you go to these other communities, these projects, and there's nothing. You know what I mean? It's just literally they don't even have a backyard. Yeah. They don't have a front yard, and you know what I mean? When they go outside, it's dangerous. You know what I mean? There's drugs. You got to look at the communities. They will literally put a liquor store or a smoke shop right across the street from a school that is primarily minorities, but you will never, ever in your life see that at a school that is primarily white.
Yeah. So something I learned in my classes was a thing called redlining, and what redlining was pretty much, it was them controlling where the minorities lived. So they made sure that they didn't move into these wealthy neighborhoods and mess everything up. I guess that's what they put it, because I guess like a lot of people think is once a minority moves into your neighborhood, oh, there goes the neighborhood, that's it. But I feel like that's not how it should be looked at, because I like to think of America as a melting pot of multiple races, different people, and I think that's what makes America great, is because we all built this together, and we need to learn from each other. Because if we don't learn from our history, then, it's bound to repeat itself.
Yeah, and a lot of places you go, we are very diverse, but at the end of the day, we still are very, very segregated. Communities, you'll see, they're just very segregated still. You know what I mean? Even schools. I've went to a school that was 98% minority. That's insane. I've went to schools that were 80% primarily white, and that's insane. You know what I mean? So a lot of the schools, they're not really mixing it. And another thing with redlining is I've seen instances in which I lived at a place, and I had to go to a high school all the way across town because I lived in a nicer home, and the trailer park not too far from me, they actually got put to the school that was closer, and we're literally right next to each other. Like, we're so close. I'm going to the school across town because that's the better school, and the school that's closer to us is the rougher school. And the kids that are living in the apartments and the trailer homes, they're going to the poorer school, or the school with the less resources, and I get to go to the school with the greater resources. I get to go to the better school because I live in a bigger house.
Yeah. For me, it was like I went to I grew up in a pretty much all Mexican neighborhood, and I went to a middle school that was all black and Mexicans, and there was like 2, 3 white people in the whole school, and then I went to a private school to play football, and it was just all white. Like I walked in and I was like, oh, where are all the Mexicans at? Because I did not know where to find them. I was looking for people who looked like me because that's how I felt comfortable. You know, like I don't know, like I just felt like if I was around too many white people, I'd get nervous. But now I learned that like I don't gotta be nervous because I work just as hard as them for even though I probably had to work a little harder or whatever. But at the end of the day, like we're the same people, we bleed the same. So don't you can't look down on me because I mean I would do the same thing you do. We all put our pants on one leg at a time. So.
Yeah, definitely. And something else, standardized testing that affects minorities at an unfair rate because I'm gonna be real, like I'm gonna speak in generality, but we know this to be true. The average white person would receive a higher grade on a test than the average minority just because of the history of, you know what I mean? They've had way longer to build that foundation in their family. You know what I mean? It's just little stuff like when I you know what I mean? I understand there's white people that go through stuff that black people don't go through. You know what I mean? But speaking in generalities, the average, you know what I mean, the average white student, they don't really have the worries that, you know what I mean, the average minority has, as in what am I going to eat today, or you know what I mean, dealing with CPS or dealing with all these other things. You know what I mean? So they can't really put their head in the school like these, you know what I mean, these white students or these, richer students are able to do.
Yeah.
And standardized testing messes that up because, I mean, how are you going to give us all the same test when it's a biased test?
Yeah. And I feel like y'all just gotta look at it like these kids are, they're going through poverty. They don't have new clothes, new shoes. They don't know where their next meal is going to come. So you really think they're going to focus on homework and tests? Like, they're out here trying to survive. They're out here trying to, make a way because they don't know any other way but to, involve themselves in criminal activity that brings them money. So, no, I'm not going to study for my math test. I'm out here hustling. I'm trying to put food on my table. My mom works 2 jobs. I got 4 little brothers and sisters. Like, like I'm the oldest, so like, that's like the reality for them. They're not focused on tests. Like that's the last thing they're worried about. And that's why a good majority of them drop out of school because, I mean, like algebra and physics is not going to put food on their table, So.
Yeah, and actually recently in class, I had a professor, he told us about all these things that these students go through, all these barriers that they have to climb through. And he said, where do you think, and he asked the class, he said, how many of you guys have actually went through some stuff, you know what I mean, similar to these? We had about 2 kids raise their hand. The other 30 students were just blank. And he said, you know where those students are at that didn't have the opportunities that you guys had? He said they're either in jail or dead right now. And he was real. Yeah. He was real. You know what I mean? You look around in the class and we learn about, you know what I mean, these schools that don't have the resources that these other schools have. And the students that went to those poor schools, they're not where we're at right now. They're not in these classrooms in college where we're at.
Yeah. And another thing is like the neighborhoods are so bad. Like kids are getting shot at just going to school. And, like, and, they're joining gangs for protection.